Welcome, Kate. Thank you so much for being on my podcast.
Oh, I am delighted. Thank you, Shilpa. It's so wonderful to be here.
Well, you and I, before I hit record, we're having such a wonderful conversation about things I feel like we're already in alignment.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Yeah. And so the month theme is conscious connection. And you and I appear to be very much in alignment with even our sort of philosophy around what it
Mm-hmm.
means to have conscious connection,
Yes.
especially around the holidays when people do tend to get lonely. And I believe that it would be nice to hear your perspective and tools people can have, particularly now, so that they can ease into the holidays without feeling a sense of
Yeah.
connection with others.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Yes. There's so many different branches and thoughts I could go down. My first thought is how important it is. And interestingly, I read something beautiful reminder this morning on this very topic, which I really believe is true, and that is to having the connection within ourselves and God, or the all that is, or the higher power, universe, whatever word we use, that the number one connection, conscious connection, is to have that connection with the all that is. Because truly, the real source of connection, and that results in a higher vibration, it results in a more joyful living. The true connection is with source, and from there we can fill up, and it can help us. And then of course we've got the external connection as well as this internal connection. But I believe that if we have that internal connection first, and we are really connected with ourselves and we know ourselves well, or we're on our way to learning more about ourselves and we're living authentically and we feel better about ourselves and we have that beautiful connection with spirit, then we are better able then naturally to attract to us like-minded people. Like-minded, like attracts like. And then this will easily, it has been my experience, and I know others will say this, it's such a wonderful demonstration how if we are in that flow, people come to us naturally. And of course, we need to take steps to go out and meet people, such as, great groups like meetup.com, or go to the church. There's many ways to meet people. But to me, Shilpa, that to me represents the consciousness, that connection first within, and then that makes it easier to have that external connection.
Absolutely. And you mentioned the word authentic, which is very key here, because when you are aligned within yourself, to your higher self, and then you're authentic to yourself, then when you're ready to step out to connect
Yeah.
with others, you are representing your full self, you know,
Yes.
with self-acceptance.
Absolutely. Beautifully said. Isn't that true? Because when we can, and everything starts from within. So when we can accept ourselves and live in that place of authenticity, we will draw to us people who are more of the same. And how wonderful is that? It's such a lovely way, what we put out comes back.
Absolutely. And making those connections externally once you've become aligned allows you to then perhaps even shift your, I would say, brain chemistry, because your brain is now responding. And it's like exercise, the endorphins are kicking in, you are
Mhm.
a sense of joy. In a lot of communities, you see people living longer because there
Mhm.
is that connection. And dinner isn't about just having the television on or some distractions,
Mhm.
enjoying the food with good conversation.
Absolutely. And that's so beautiful. And you mentioned about the brain and how it changes. That reminds me of the term neuroplasticity. And that I love sharing this with people because to me it helps them to become empowered to know that they can make a shift in their brain. Neuroplasticity is really representing that the brain can shift and change and make new connections with different neurons. And in that, we can make a shift in our lives. So not just on an energetic level, because everything is energy, but also on the neuron brain level. So I find that so intriguing and empowering, because we don't have to think we are victims. We do have the power to make change.
Absolutely. I just wrote about this last night because it was World Mental Health Day, and I did some research and collected some tidbits about what it means to affect our brain chemistry. And it seems that it's pretty clear that neuroplasticity is not only accessible in terms of us being able to control it, but also our ability to then say, I'm not a victim.
Yeah.
Because, so a lot of people say, well, it's my DNA. Well, yes, that will probably affect you on a chemistry level and on many levels. I won't deny that. But you are not a victim. You have the ability, and those neural connections you make in your brain also is metaphoric to you making new connections with other humans, because if we're all
Yeah.
energy, you're making
Oh, yeah.
connections,
Oh, I
right?
love that. I hadn't thought of it that way, but isn't that true? I love that metaphor. It is all about connection, whether it's connection to ourselves or connection to others or connection to source, spirit. Yeah, that's lovely. That's a beautiful metaphor.
Thank you. Well, one of the reasons I was so excited to have you on my podcast for this particular topic is your book, Humanity's Cry for Change. And that really spoke to my heart. I would love for you to elaborate on your book and your message.
Oh, thank you. I was very blessed many years ago to discover I have the gift of channeling information through meditation. And this is the result of my first book back in 2010, Deeply We Are One. And now my latest book, Humanity's Cry for Change. So I feel like I'm very honored to be the messenger. And in essence, Humanity's Cry for Change shares key concepts that we individually and collectively need to take if we want to survive. If we want to survive as a species, so much has to change. And the good news is we can change individually. And the book describes how. And we can also change on a collective basis. One of the key concepts is the interconnection connection that we all have with life, and that through this connection, we actually, when we live in a place of oneness living, understanding we are interconnected, we then better understand how what we do to another also affects us, and how everything interpenetrates and coalesces with each other. So there's a lot of advantages to humanity, to understanding the oneness. Another key thing it shares is our shift from the old age of Pisces into the new age of Aquarius, the old age of 2,000 years of male dominance and competition and aggression and thinking war is the answer, to moving into a more collaborative, loving, peaceful, kind, knowing that we're all interconnected, there is unity. But in order to get there, we have to go through a birthing process. And we are going through that right now. And can be painful. It's very challenging on individuals and also on the collective, all of humanity. So the book describes why this is. And there's also simple exercises in there that help a person to raise their vibration, for example. Or another is about the importance of living authentically. And then there's some other really wonderful, simple exercises that help us prime and condition ourselves to have a better life within ourselves. And as we do, and we feel better, those around us feel better, and we are adding to the collective consciousness. So imagine, I always love to share this, imagine 100,000 or 100 million people or even 1 billion people doing their own individual work, the impact on a positive level happens to the collective consciousness, and there is a shift that is happening. I think more and more people are awakening. So those are some key points on my book.
I love the fact that you have exercises in your book as well. I feel like that a lot of us, myself included, love to feel that I'm taking action, I'm doing something.
Yeah, yes. That's a good way to put it. Yeah, that there are things we can do, and I am taking action. I like how you pointed that out.
That is lovely. And in your book, when you mentioned channeling, I find that so fascinating because right now we live, at least I'm around a lot of souls like yourself who believe in the higher source and the energy and things that are perhaps considered more subtle in nature is obvious.
Yeah.
However, when I step out of the house and say go to the store, I may be the only one in the store who's feeling that way or thinking that way. And so it's a little bit of a challenge at times when you do have that different perspective. And
Mhm.
so I guess what I'm trying to say is it's really revealing to me that when you say channeling, that that is something perhaps 10, 20 years from now, more people will learn to experience and accept.
Mhm. Well, we actually all have the gift of channeling. Another way to word it is automatic writing, where, again, it's very important to be in a place of alignment and connection, like we've been talking about, that connection with source. And in doing that, and I find I can do that best in meditation, in that then the words come to me, a group of angels that are assigned to me, so to speak, assigned to many, but speaking through me. So we do all actually have the gift. Not all of us are meant to use it in every single lifetime, but I think you're spot on. I think it's going to become more and more accepted and mainstream. I think part of our evolution, which my book also describes, that we're going through, and the most extraordinary, profound shift evolution ever since humanity. But I think part of that evolution is our tapping into and using our divine gifts, such as channeling or telepathy, and to become more in tune with our intuition, all of those, and so many other gifts that we are really capable of, but we really, maybe so many of us haven't been conditioned or taught to do this in our society, but I think that's shifting.
And it's, yeah. And I find it intriguing that you mentioned the word writing. I feel like when I was younger, I was able to write things that came to me. So they were poetries, but they were deeper than what my age level would have been able to grasp.
Wow, that's
So it was
wonderful.
on the passing of time and the illusion of time. And I remember when it came to me, I was 18. I just woke up, grabbed a pen, and wrote out this poem.
Oh, that's
Uh,
wonderful. That's beautiful.
I've lost it though over the years. I think it's because I became too cerebral, too logical, and lacking in trust. And I think a lot of this does
Mhm.
require tuning in and trusting.
Yes, it does. Absolutely. It really does.
Perhaps maybe just on that topic, it's coming to me, so maybe we go there. When we come to the place of making connections externally, before we hit record, I mentioned that good company can uplift us,
Yes.
but company that is not vibrating on the same level, or those souls, they may not necessarily be conducive of uplifting us. And how do
Mhm.
you tune in and intuitively know what is right when maybe
Mm.
you're not that tuned in yet, or not that tuned in with your intuition?
Oh, excellent question. The answer is to be in a place of awareness with your feelings. The feelings is our natural inner guidance system. So the feelings are like, oh, it could be like a feeling of an emotion, or it could be a feeling in your physical body. And I think all of us are quite familiar with, that scared feeling in our gut. Or I used to get a pang, actual physical 1 second feeling in my heart when I was in a place of fear. But I think all of us could relate to the idea of we all have sensations, whether they're physical or they may be an emotional fear. For example, let's say a person walks into a room at a party and everyone seems happy and it feels good to walk into that party. And it feels like it's uplifted and happy and celebratory. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that word right. Celebration. And likewise, when we walk into a room, let's say there was a really big argument between a couple of people, or we're walking into a funeral, we can definitely feel and sense there's some energy, it's different. So my suggestion is for us to, number one, in all areas of our life, if we can, the key is to be in a place of awareness. And so in this context, to have an awareness of how am I feeling? When you see someone that you really like, do you feel good? And then maybe you meet someone at a party and nothing against him, but he or she feels icky. Trust that feeling. So I would say the best thing to do if a person is going out to try to meet people, to trust yourself. Start paying attention to how you're feeling. And if a person is not so accustomed to trusting their gut feeling, then I would suggest give it a try and then see what the end result is. If you trust your gut feeling and then you can start remembering, oh, as a result of my trusting that I should not have gone with that person, I feel a sense of relief. Use that sense of relief as, affirmation or a confirmation you made the right decision, if that makes sense. So
Yes, absolutely. It makes sense. And I think that wisdom would have been very helpful for me when I was growing up. And,
me too.
when I was in my younger days, we're so eager just to be around others who you just feel like you assume that they're aligned, but it may not be the truth. And
Yes.
so now that we've talked about external connections and knowing that humanity is in need of that shift, perhaps we can go deeper into what type of tools can you use if you're new to spirituality, so that being alone isn't so scary. Because I know a lot of people who share that, oh, I can't meditate, I can't be alone with my thoughts, or I have to do something. And however, the pathway to alignment is through meditation.
Yes, there are many different ways to meditate. And if a person, so I will share a couple things. One is the meditation. And I also have another simple, but it's so effective. I always love sharing this. And that has to do with gratitude. So I'll share with that in a minute. But the first is meditation. You know, the definition of meditation is actually very simple. It is whatever a person is really keenly focused on. So person does not have to sit in a chair and have to have quiet thoughts in order to meditate. Thoughts come and go, and it's normal. The more a person meditates, the less thoughts will come. But, I've been meditating for, 30 years. And occasionally I'll still have a meditation where thoughts come in. So that's normal. But another great way to meditate is to take a walk in nature and just be so keenly present in the moment, checking out the trees, hearing the birds, or recognizing the silence, feeling your feet on the ground, being so keenly present. That is a way of meditation. Another thing is art or music. When we're doing like art and we're so like just so in the moment, in that creativity, we're not thinking about the past or the future, right? Or if we're so engaged in the amazing music and we're just so enamored with it, we're so at one with it, that's also a form of meditation. So I would encourage anyone to think about that. A second way that we can really uplift ourselves when we're in a place, maybe we do feel alone, or maybe, yeah, we're not in the space we want to be, or we're beginning, like you say, just beginning our spiritual path. One of the best things that anyone can do is to have gratitude. So just very briefly, everything is energy, and even thoughts and emotions are energy. And even the actions we take is energy. So when we have an emotion of upset or depression or anger or whatever type of emotion that does not feel good, and there's that word again, does not feel good. It doesn't feel good to be jealous. It doesn't feel good to have that frustration or stress. But if we're in that space, try to recognize it, be in awareness, and then if you can, try to find something that you're thankful for. There's so many things to be thankful for. We can be thankful, and then to tap into that thankfulness, feel it and be with it. For example, be grateful you even can get out of bed. You're healthy enough. You've got water at your fingertips any time of day at the kitchen faucet. Or how about the food we have? I mean, you can think basic stuff, but not everyone has this. And there's so much we can be grateful for. Grateful for our friends, and grateful that I can even speak, that I have a throat and I can talk. There's so much to be grateful for. And if we can just tune into and be grateful, feeling it and truly feel it, not out of rote, not out of just, okay, I'm grateful, but sincerely having that gratitude will help. Now, I always like to share, it's really important, please don't ignore your upsets. Don't ignore that you are upset with this person or you are feeling jealousy. It's okay to feel it. It's important to acknowledge it, but then work through with whatever tools you have to process through those upsets. And then in that, you can better release it. Maybe it'll come up again, but at least if you can be aware of it and then release it through processing, this helps. Then go back into that. One of the simplest tools is, like I mentioned, the gratitude. So again, and that raises our vibration into feeling the higher vibrational emotions of joy and kindness and love, because the heart is opening up. And again, how do we feel when our heart is open and when we're with that special person and they bring us so much joy? Or how do we feel when we're so connected to God, to spirit, and that connection feels like bliss? So those are two simple things we can do.
And that's so profound for the holidays, because
Yeah.
often it's, especially Thanksgiving, people sit around
Yeah.
and acknowledge the things that they are thankful for. And I have a new perspective on gratitude that I may not have had even just a few years ago, because of this concept of, since we are all energy, and if
Yeah.
you focus on the things that you do find positive,
Yes.
then what you're doing is you're attracting more of
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
right? And
It's so true.
so, like you were saying, though, it's not to mean that things aren't things are perfect. There might be that one character in your life that has caused or triggered inside of you something. However, by hyper focusing on those
Yeah.
unpleasant, negative things, we inadvertently attract more of it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yes. It's all, a lot of it can be unconscious unless we choose to live a conscious life. And that's why I always share how good it is, how beneficial to be in a place of awareness. How am I feeling right now? And what does my body tell me today?
Yes, and that actually is a really good point as well. Again, new information that I've sort of processed over the last few years. When you are meditating or when you become aware of those unpleasant things, if you try to suppress it and not acknowledge it,
Yeah.
that energy becomes locked in your body. And then
Yes.
you really feel stuff, but you may not make that connection that
Right.
this has become locked energy
Right.
on a
Yeah.
material level, on your physical level, because um we we may not have acknowledged. Some people live in denial of certain things.
Yeah.
That's why journaling helps, and that's why gratitude helps,
Yes.
and even meditate. When
Yeah.
those thoughts come, you observe them. You're like, oh, that, like, I'm just making one scenario, but I was in some situation where somebody said something unpleasant.
Yeah.
Rather than just letting it go, just say, I acknowledge it, I see you,
Yes.
and
It's
now I
so
choose to let it
powerful.
go.
Absolutely.
Right.
It's so essential that we do acknowledge it and not stuff it, because like you say, it does get stuck in our physical body. Well, it'll get stuck in our other levels of our body energy. And if it doesn't get resolved, it turns into disease on the physical level. And people, like
Yes.
you said, they don't always associate it. Oh, I really don't feel that way. Oh, I shouldn't feel that way. Well, the body is reacting, your emotions are reacting. So, again, that's where the key is for the awareness. How am I
Mm-hmm.
feeling? I had something happen this morning that really upset me. And so I was like, oh, and I allowed myself to feel the feelings. And I went out and took a short run and
Mm-hmm.
let it out and processed it. So I feel a lot better. I'll deal with this particular situation later, not with the person when I'm angry, but now I processed the anger out. I'm going to calm down and I will talk with him probably tomorrow.
Yeah.
And so, not talking to him out of anger, but out of a place of love and
Mm-hmm.
connection. Like your theme today. I love your theme, the connection. How am I going to talk with this person? We all know it doesn't do any good to talk if we're from a low vibrational energies like anger, frustration. But when I work on my own self, release it, then I can get into a place much more centered and from a place of love, still knowing my boundaries, but I will speak with him from a place of love and respect and explain the situation and get it resolved. So,
And I just had this epiphany, like when you were sharing that. I was following this qigong teacher, and he talks about, let's say you get stuck in a looping thought, or you're in a situation of tension with some other people. He talks about just going out of the environment and maybe going for a walk or
yeah,
doing some quick movement exercise.
yes, yes,
And what we're doing is you're releasing that energy, not only on a mental level by saying, I acknowledge you, I'm
yes,
aware,
yeah,
I release, but also on a physical level before it gets locked in your body. By
mhm,
just going for that run or doing some qigong, you're
yes,
allowing your body to release it, because it's manifesting on some level on your body.
mhm,
And I don't think I was raised necessarily knowing how to manage relationships that had that kind of level of tension.
mhm,
And I what I witnessed was often um probably unhealthy communication growing up. And so as I got older, it's almost like you're on autopilot. You don't know any different.
very true.
And when you're in a difficult situation, I would find myself either pushing it, coming in with aggression and
Right,
voicing what I thought was my right,
yeah,
or shying away and completely denying it. And
mhm,
neither is healthy.
right. Most of us, I think, are brought up that way. We're not taught how to communicate in a way that is nonviolent, not from
Mhm.
a place of love and kindness. And again, it starts with us. how loving and kind am I with myself? And as I do my own personal healing, like my book, Humanity's Cry for Change, talks about this too, and many other books talk about it, how essential it is we do our own personal healing, because all of us have gone through trauma and difficulties of some kind. When we can do our own healing, then that can allow us then to be more of a clear vessel for the love energy to come through, and also for us to have a higher vibration energetically. So there's so many benefits to doing our own personal work. And in that, we can then better approach others. But so many of us are not taught. I wasn't taught either as a child, but I'm grateful for all the teachings and so many books and spiritual leaders teaching what I believe is real truth. Because really, everything is energy. It all boils down to energy. So if I focus on something, it's going to get bigger. And if I yell at someone, chances are they're going to yell at me. And that's just not an effective way to deal with conflict. You know, there's an incredible book called The Nonviolent Communication with Marshall. I apologize. I don't remember the author's name, but it's an incredibly wonderful, loving way to communicate, especially with conflict.
Absolutely. I was going to mention, I too forget the name of the author, but there's one particular woman who focuses her coaching around nonviolent communication.
Oh, wow, that's
And
great.
just the other, isn't that, I'll make sure it's in the show notes and share with you the information. Just the other day, I was talking to someone on my podcast, and we sort of subtly touched upon communication. And one of them is like, let's say you are making a conscious connection with yourself, then one of the key ways to uplift yourself is to become aware of how are you speaking of yourself and to yourself. And the words we use have energy.
Yes.
And so I even say, like, don't use the word hate. I mean, even if it might feel appropriate for a situation, but it's carries a lot of energy that is will bring you down.
Yes. So true. It's so important. You're bringing such a great reminder of how important it is to be in awareness, living consciously. How am I talking to myself? I share that a lot with my coaches. My clients. I'm a coach as well, and so I share that. That I think is key. Again, how do we know how we're talking to ourselves unless we are aware? Because that often is so automatic that we talk in a certain way. We don't even think about it. But then again, we can intercept it and stop and work on ourselves and talk kind to ourselves. And yes, everything has energy and makes an impact not just to us, but to those around us.
It does. And again, I am work in progress. So just a couple of years ago, 3-4 years ago, if you'd met me, I may not have been consciously practicing nonviolent communication with myself. And now, just the other day, before I hit record, I was telling you I have this cough. And I've been so frustrated with the cough that every time I talk about the cough, as though it was its real thing with my husband, I'll say, the cough is killing me. I thought the other day, I'm like, I really need to adjust language around this.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And there's some, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I was going to say there's certain phrases that people will say without even thinking about it, but really they have energy. Everything has energy. So let's be mindful on how we talk to ourselves and how do we talk to others. I'm glad that you brought that up. It's so important.
Yeah, the other day I was trying to get something done and I said, I was thinking it, but before I could think it, I was aware. So I said, I'm going to change the language on this. But I was like, well, I can kill two birds with one stone. I'm like, oh,
I
very
know.
negative. No, why? So I came up with some other metaphor, but I was suddenly aware. I'm like, whoa, that phrase has a lot of connotations of
It
negativity.
does. It does. Yeah.
So, but
Yeah.
as a society, we may be unaware. And again, going back to connections for the holidays, I believe you brought up wonderful tips. The focus of where you're placing your awareness, your consciousness,
Yes.
the gratitude approach, like, focusing on the gratitude of what is uplifting you.
Yes.
Those are, and then meditation. I also love the fact that becoming more present. I call it more of a mindful meditation. So you can be
Yeah.
in nature
Yeah.
and becoming more present. I think of nature as a vibrational level, which is more in tune with a higher
Yeah.
force.
It is.
So when, isn't it?
It
So
is.
sometimes it's just like you're in the backyard and just the wind blowing and the ease with which the flowers are flowing. Just
Yeah.
those subtle things,
Yeah.
if you can tune in long enough, it can lift you up.
Absolutely. And even like putting your feet, your bare feet on the grass is so
Yes.
uplifting. And you're just getting the love energy of Mother Earth, or laying on the grass. I don't do enough of that. I hardly ever do. I need to do that before the winter sets in. But laying and looking up in the sky, or putting our feet on the ground, or just taking a walk, it always is so connecting. Speaking of connecting,
Yes,
yeah.
absolutely. And I do grounding. I go in the backyard with my bare feet and walk on the ground.
Yeah.
And it is actually scientifically proven to
Yeah.
shift your energy. You're grounding your energy.
Yes.
And often in modern society, we are really disconnected from the Mother Earth energy.
Yeah. Yeah. So it really
Well, at
helps.
least it does. It does. Well, any parting words for our guests? They will have a means to look or read your book or find your book. But anything else you'd like to share on this topic of conscious connection? This,
I would encourage people to, as best as they can, to truly know the greatness of who they are. If we can really tap into appreciating ourselves, we can have a greater connection within, and that helps, and it ripples out to making connections with others, and to have that connection with the all that is, with God. That can help in a place sometimes when we do get lonely. So I would say start with yourself, and certainly to reach out when you're feeling better within, then you're better able to connect with others who, might want the same thing. And to be also just a reminder to be in tune with your feelings, to really honor and use that as a guidance, and trust yourself and start working on that trust. So those are the last words I would just like to share. Along with my website, which is a great place to reach me, is my website, joyfulradiance.com, Joyful Radiance. And you can learn about my book, and there's a lot of free articles on there. And if you'd like, opt in. I do a once a month, very uplifting article, as well as 2 free meditations that a person can get if they decide to opt in. And then just, feel free to reach out and make a comment if you'd like. I'd love to hear from people. I love being of service. So thank you.
thank you, Kate. I sincerely appreciate all of your lovely details. Will definitely be included in the show notes, and I look forward to perhaps having you back in the future.
Oh,
There's an appropriate.
thank
Well,
you.
you're a match for this topic. I so appreciate you.
Oh, I appreciate you too. Thank you for having the platform that you do for this wonderful podcast. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great day.